Welcome into the Fan Addict Sports Channel for sports fans by a sports fan. This your boy Coach I. Where are my dogs at? Hey, I'm getting over a tough loss from the SEC Championship, but hey, on to the next, man. Before we get to all these bowl games, we got one of the most important rivalries in college football. We got the Army-Navy game, a game that I haven't been to yet. I want to go, but it's always at this time of the year, and it's so cold. I don't know if I ever get to it because the people that know me know I don't like extreme weather. But to do this preview, man, I got a guy that's a supporter and a fan of Army West Point. He's knowledgeable about the rivalry. We're going to bring him in so he can give us a little tidbit on the inside of what this rivalry is. His name is Donnie. Let's go ahead and bring Donnie in. What's going on, Donnie?
How are we doing, Coach I? Great to talk to you, sir. My commiserations over Georgia. I am an Iowa person as well, and so I know your pain. Unfortunately, my team I might be the only person that may be a little more down than you, but I am looking forward to this Army-Navy game. This is a game I look forward to every year. I had family in the military on both sides, so I know both sides of this rivalry. So I'm really looking forward to it. Always my favorite game of the year.
Before we get into it, man, tell everybody about your Sideline Sports Network account on Twitter and how they can find you and what it's all about.
All right, so Sideline Sports account is kind of basically a sports Twitter accounts that they kind of cover a lot of different college accounts. I help run the West Point account, which is our Army Academy. We are not technically connected to the Army, the West Point Academy, so we're not official. We're not like connected to them. But it's just basically what we do is we go through and we highlight, we do game reviews, we do game reactions, like every Army game. I will do literally drive-by-drive accounts saying how they scored, what's happening, turnovers, how the other team is doing, kind of my thoughts on it. So it's really just it's kind of a fan's look at Army athletics, Army football, Army basketball, all their athletics. It's not as easy to see some of the Army athletics being located in Iowa, so I try my best. But the best part is, with most of the Army sports having Twitter accounts, it's very easy to keep track of them. So I try to like it and retweet, so then all of them are out there. But primarily, it's for the football season, which is a blast. And seeing Army be successful over these last 5 years has been a blast.
Oh man, that sounds great, man. And I'd like to say, I like to follow you guys, all of the Sideline Sports Network account. I mean, I've had a couple of guys on here. I've had the Sideline Sports Network, Texas A&M, a guy named Liam. He actually did a preview for me. So it's been good, man. And for those out there that want to know where you can find it, the Sideline Sports Network account for Army West Point is below. It's at all caps, SSN_Army, all caps. So, and that'll be below Donnie the whole time here, and it'll flash on the screen when it's not below him. So let's go ahead and jump into it. We're going to give y'all a little taste of what America's game is, the rivalry, and a little bit of history, whatever Donnie can provide insight on. We'll talk about the Commander-in-Chief Trophy. Then we'll preview the Army-Navy game and give some predictions. So I did do a little research, Donnie, some stuff that I did not know, and this explains a lot. So one of the things they say why it's one of the greatest rivalries is because of how physical these teams play, but I didn't know that each school has a body type or height weight limitation. So for instance, if you play for Army and you're 6'6", you can't weigh more than like 238 pounds. Well, conversely, like when you playing against LSU, somebody might be 6'4", 321, and that cannot happen. I did not know that. So that's why it's like when an Army plays a Ohio State or Navy plays a Cincinnati, even Cincinnati players may be bigger than them. I did not know that. Did you know that already?
I did know that. I know with the military service, they like keeping certain players in certain shapes. I know that when at least connected to Navy, Coach Matalolo actually was working with the Naval Academy about trying to kind of relax it a little bit to let some of these football players come in. So it is also one of the reasons why you see the academy teams run the triple option, because it does kind of neutral out that issue that they run into with say Power Fives. Like Army's played Oklahoma the one year and took them to overtime, because their system really is based to kind of neutralize that weight height difference because they don't have to be super athletic on the offensive line. They just need, as long as they can get a quick cut in to get the defensive linemen and defensive out the first at least initial set out of the way, that usually kind of neutralizes it. So yeah, it's one of those where it does handicap them, but you also got to look at it too, is that you have to be, when you join the Army, Navy, or even the Air Force, you have the military role that you have in. So you're not going to get the 5-star athletes coming to Army, Navy, or Air Force. You're just not, because most of them are not going to want to do the military service because they're 5-star. They're looking at the NFL. So you can make the NFL at the academies. It's just, it's not an easy thing because you either have to get a special, basically a special permission to be out of it, or you need to go in and then hope your NFL franchise is okay with you missing for your, I think it's 3 years or 4-year military service before you can play professional football. So it doesn't happen very often. So this is really a game where it's more about passion, because many of these kids, they know they're going into the military as soon as they graduate from West Point or from the Air Force Academy or from Navy, they're going into the military then. So they're not thinking about professional sports like your Georgias or your Ohio States or your Michigans. They're thinking they're going to be leading combat soldiers overseas as soon as they're done.
And that's probably one of the reasons that plays into why the cadets have to be a certain size. Even if you're 6'6", you can't be too heavy because you're still a cadet. And at the end of the day, when you finish, you're going to be, in our armed forces. So you couldn't be, too big or whatever the case may be. Also, I found out, so I think we kind of talked off camera that out of the last 5, Army's won 4 of the last 5. But before then, Navy had won like 10 straight. So,
yeah, I think it was 13 in a row, and it became this very interesting thing for the Army Academy. And I think it's one of the reasons why Jeff Monken, who is the head coach currently for Army, was hired, because he had come from the Navy. He had run the triple option at Georgia Southern. So I think that was kind of the reason why that had happened. It's kind of flipped a little bit. I think Army's kind of become the dominant team now. They've had more wins. Coach Mainatalolo is I've even heard some rumors he may not be at Navy after this season. So this game has even a little bit more of a tinge of interestingness, because you have Monken. They have already qualified for a bowl game. They're going to play Missouri in the Armed Forces Bowl. So Army is coming into this just with a chance to add another win to their season. So there's a lot of intrigue coming into this game this weekend, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it too. Another fun fact I didn't know is that after the game, both teams sing each other's fight song, alma mater song, or whatever. And it's like, first the winning team gets to sing theirs, and the losing team joins in, and then they vice versa.
It's the other way around, actually. Okay. And what it actually is they don't actually sing each other's. What it is the losing team sings first. So you always want to sing second. If you sing second, that means your team has won. So if Navy, we'll make it simple, is when Air Force and Army or Navy, when they play each other, when the academies play each other, it's always the winner sings second. So when Army played Navy earlier this year, Navy sings first, Army sings, and Air Force sings second. So when Army played Air Force, Army won, so Army sings second, Air Force. So it'll be the same thing with Army Navy. It's whoever wins, they get to sing second. So it's kind of, if you pay attention to it, when it comes to it, you always want to sing second, because that means you won the game.
That's interesting. So let me ask you, have you ever been to an Army Navy game?
I have not. It's kind of become a big family tradition of mine. Like my grandmother had, her husband was Navy, her father was Army. So for years, she could never cheer. She could never cheer because she always had one on either side. And I'm big with my grandfather, so we made a tradition out of it, that we would watch the game with her every year for probably the last 15 years now. And it's become something I fell in love with the Army program because of it. When Jeff Monken took over, I loved how he changed the program. The program became it was beating Navy because they hadn't beat Navy. I mean, the tunnel into their practice facility is called Beat Navy Tunnel.
That says a lot there. So you did bring up Air Force. So what we'll do is we'll explain to those that don't know what the Commander-in-Chief Trophy is. Go ahead and kind of just give a little short what that trophy means and what it is to all three service academies.
Okay, so the commander in chief, I know everybody talks about the Midwest teams all have the game trophies, the old Oaken Bucket, the Floyd of Rosedale, all those. For the academies, it's the commander in chief. Now it's a very odd one because again you have three teams vying for it. So here's the rules for the commander in chief. It's plain and simple. If you beat the two other academies, you get the commander in chief. Where the fun part of the rule comes is if all three academies win a game. So if Army were to, since Air Force beat Navy, Army beat Air Force, but Navy beats Army, the team that won it the previous year retains it because there was technically no winner because nobody had to win. So Army actually goes into this game against Navy knowing that they're going to win the commander in chief no matter what happens because they beat Air Force and they won the commander in chief last year. So the worst they're going to be is they're going to get a tie and they'll keep it. If Army wins, they get the commander in chief outright. So it's one of those funky rules where if everybody's 1-1, the team that won it the previous year retains it. But other than that, if you win both games, you beat Army, you beat Navy, or you beat Navy, you beat Air Force, you get the commander in chief trophy.
Yeah, I think I did read that, and that, like I said, if Army wins, then Army basically comes into the game as a partial winner regardless because they already won one. Mm-hmm. So. All right, man. Let's get on to the actual preview. Army is coming in the game. If I'm not mistaken, they are 9-3 or 8-3. 8-3. And then Navy.
I believe it's 8-3. This will be 12. This will be the 12.
Navy, I don't know. Do you know their record? I know they haven't been doing as good as Army, but they did give Cincinnati a really good game.
3-8 actually. And Navy's issue this year has just been inconsistency on the offensive side of it. Like this really is a game where if you look at the records, you think this is an easy win for Army. Army's the winning team. They know they're going to a bowl. Navy, even if they win, is not going to go to a bowl another losing season. But when the academies play each other, it's always a tough game. There is very rarely do you see blowouts in these, especially the Army Navy game. It is so close because these teams are so similar. They both run the triple option. They both are very based off of that. So we come into this game thinking Army should win it, but they are so similar that this could be a game that could come down to turnovers and field position, which would be fascinating to see how that goes. Because if you look at it, Army offensively is the better team. Defensively, Army is the better team. But again, when you face the academies, it's always kind of different. I think the X factor is going to be the passing game on both sides. And Army this year has shown a much more consistent, and I say this loosely because this is Army. Again, this is Army. They are much more consistent throwing the football than Navy is. Navy passes maybe 3 or 4 times a game. Army has been a little bit more pass happy. They do have a quarterback in Anderson that came from a spread style throwing offense. So he's much more used to throwing the football, especially in his younger days. So he's much more proficient throwing the football. So I think that's going to be the biggest thing is if this becomes just a triple option, fullback dive, fullback follow, quarterback follow type of game, this is going to come down to field position. If this becomes an air raid where both teams are having to throw the football, I think Army wins. I think Army wins it because Navy's secondary has been riddled with injuries this year, and I think that might be the biggest factor in this game. Will be is if Army can throw the football, that may open up this game a lot for the Army.
Army being 3-8 doesn't even not Army, but Navy being 3-8 doesn't really tell their whole story. Like I say, they played Cincinnati really good, and then not that Wake Forest has a good defense, but Navy went toe to toe with them. It was like I want to say it was like. It was like 60-something to 40-something. So
it was 70-56, if I remember. Was the Wake Forest Army game? I remember watching it because it was one of those where it was two different offenses scoring points. It was Wake Forest with one pass for 80 yards for a touchdown, and then Army would go 10 plays, 2 minutes for a touchdown. And it was back and forth the entire time. It was the only time this year that Army's defense really got exposed because They're a little bit more man happy. A little bit. They tend to play a little bit more man to man defense on the corners because they need to blitz. They don't have a ton. They usually don't get a ton of pressure from the front four. They'll bring up the occasional linebacker, but not a ton. So occasionally their cornerbacks are on islands. Well, when you get that Wake Forest team had some pretty good wide receivers, one good slant route, and you've got the speed of a Power 5 wide receiver. It's donezo. There's just no way. So that was a crazy game. I remember watching that one, just going. I mean, it was who had the football last might be the one that wins the game.
Man, you're right, and that is, I think that's kind of how it went. I think those last couple of touchdowns in the fourth quarter was just, like I say, because you're trying to score at a extreme clip, and then when you're doing that, you're at risk for a lot of turnovers as well. But they played pretty good. They came up short, but Wake Forest scored a lot of points on a lot of people this year, so that didn't. That wasn't Army's fault. Let me say that. So since they both run the same kind of offense, Army and Navy, would you say then it comes down, in my mind, to Jimmy's and Joe's? You know what I'm saying? So who do you feel has the best backfield? Because this is a triple option game. Who would you say has the most, the chance for the most explosive plays, Army or Navy?
I'm not trying to go homer because I run the Army page, but Army has the more explosive tailbacks when it comes to it. Navy's biggest rushers are their fullbacks. They've been the ones that have been causing the most damage for Navy this year. Where Army has burned a few teams with their triple option, getting all the way to the pitch, where the quarterback drags the cornerback gets the pitch. Well, now you've got a safety trying to come on at full speed. And you've got surprisingly, Army has got some athletes in the backfield that have been able to make some plays. So when it comes to the wide running backs, I would give Army that. Fullbacks, I think it maybe just a tiny bit, but Buchanan, again, that ability to run forward and always get positive yards has been good. I guess I think it all just comes down to, can Navy tackle? Because if this gets into the open field and their secondary issues that they've had, if they miss tackles, it's going to go for big yards. It's not going to be 4 or 5 yards. It's going to be 20, 30, 40. And Army can hit you. I've seen drives where they're 2-minute drives and they run 4 plays and get 20 yards on each play because a fullback dive breaks loose for 15 because the linebacker misses a tackle. This is a game where it's the little things. It's the field position, it's the turnover battle, and it's tackling. Because with both of these teams, you know what they're going to do. The first play is going to be a fullback dive or a quarterback follow after the dive. Once they establish it's how the fullback dive goes is really how the triple option goes. If the fullback dive gets yardage, the rest of the triple option works. Exactly. If the fullback dive doesn't, like if you get penetration in the defensive line, the fullback doesn't get that, it makes the triple option now a double because we know the fullback's not going to get it. So now we know, play your defensive end on the cornerback, get your corner, your safety on the running back, and if you can make a tackle in the open field, you can stop the triple option. Some teams have trouble doing that. We'll have to see. Can Navy's defensive line stop the fullback dive? Can Army's defensive line stop that fullback dive? Because that's going to make or break the running game. And then the passing. Like I said, it's the proficiency in passing because if they have to throw, if it gets to 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, and you're behind the chain, Army is a little more consistent throwing the football. Navy is a little suspect.
So with the, you're right, stopping the triple option, which Georgia had a lot of practice with playing Georgia Tech under Paul Johnson. If the fullback dive, like you said, is working, then it's almost impossible to stop the triple option. So that brings into play the interior defensive lineman. Who would you give the edge to for that, Army or Navy? Interior defensive lineman.
Oh, if you force me to, Navy has really been good at getting some recruits with a little bit more size. Navy actually, getting that change of the size. Army's better defensive players are their linebackers and their defensive ends. Their defensive tackles have primarily been told this year, be able to suck up blocks to let the linebackers have some fun. So if they can at least take the guards and the center away to where the linebackers can make tackles, I think it'll even out. But if just defensive linemen, I would go Navy.
So we got Army with the better running backs, got Navy with edge and in interior defensive lineman. Who do you say has the edge at quarterback if the game should come down to having to complete a lot of third and longs?
Oh, this should be interesting because I think it depends. Well, it really does depend on it depends on how these teams approach it. I've read a few articles online about this. Is that if Army takes a little bit more pass happy, I think Army has the better quarterback because Anderson can throw the ball. He's much more proficient. Tyler is the running quarterback. He's the little bullish. He's like 6 foot 210, but he runs not as good as a passer, but he can run and he can find holes behind the big offensive line. Navy's quarterback has always been more of the running quarterback. They're not usually known for their throwing quarterbacks. So when it comes to depth of being able to run and throw, I would give Army, but it's by committee. Army will probably play at least two quarterbacks, if not more. They'll probably play Anderson and they'll play Tyreek Tyler. Navy will play one quarterback, but he's not going to throw. He's going to throw maybe 4 or 5 times only when it's necessary. So I would, if you can combine Tyler and Anderson together, I would say Army has the favorite there because of the ability to throw
I
and run.
got you. I got you. Well, it sounds like even though this is a triple option, both of these teams are triple option teams. This may be a high scoring affair depending on what defense comes out, and actually if they can make a stop or not. So, what we'll do is we'll move on to get your prediction of how the game will play out and what you think the final score will be.
Oh, I don't want to be a homer, but I'm going to
It's
go there.
okay.
I think Army wins this. I'm I try to be as even as possible when I do these predictions because I try not to take in. Again, I love the Army program, but I appreciate and respect the Navy program. I think what Coach Montalolo has done there is incredible. He plays in the conference. Army doesn't. Army has an independent factor, so they don't have the guaranteed games against certain teams like Navy does in the American Athletic Conference. So that's kind of one of the changes that I think I almost wish Army would decide to join a conference because I think that might give them a little bit of a different look. We'll see. I think Army wins this just because Army's got a lot of positive momentum, except for the game against Wake Forest and a lousy game against Ball State. Army has played very good football against some good teams. They went into Wisconsin and played Wisconsin down to the wire in Madison and almost darn near won that football game. What an incredible performance by them. Army tends to do this when they play the big Power 5 teams. They give
They
them a
do.
game because they run what they do every time. And I think that's the staple of Coach Monken. They've taken the turnovers out of their game, which used to be their biggest bugaboo during their losing streak, because they would turn the ball over in the Army-Navy game. They don't do that very often. They're very good. They don't turn the ball over. I think this is going to come down to if Army can pass the ball, this could get opened up a little bit. I see 35-14 Army. I think Army scores a few more touchdowns. The weather being nice, not being super cold, rainy, anything like that, I think may help the offenses out a little bit. It also will keep turnovers down because you won't have fumbles. Like, I don't know if you paid attention to a few years ago when they had the snow
Yeah.
game. What an incredible game that was, because there was no way anybody was going to throw the ball, because you threw the ball, you had no idea if you were going to catch it or not. And what added to that was the fact that Army's uniforms were all
Yep.
white, which I thought was fascinating. They picked a year that it snows and they picked all white uniforms, which I thought was incredible.
Well, yeah.
So I think Army wins this one. I think it's a really good game. It's going to be a good game. I just think Army has a little too much firepower for Navy's defense, especially with Navy's issues with injuries in the secondary and Anderson's ability to throw the football. And Army's got a couple of big wide receivers that can catch the ball. They've shown they can get open. I think Army wins this one. I think 35-14. I'm hoping even it's closer because I love really close Army-Navy games because they're competitive and you just enjoy the atmosphere and you see kind of that military connection to it. But it's the best part is these guys, they're going to beat the crap out of each other during the game, but after the game, they're going to hug each other. They'll sing the songs, but they know that they get to work with each other in the military, which I think is one of my favorite parts about this game is that they may be opponents now, but they're brothers in arms once this game is
Yeah.
over.
Well, I haven't checked the weather forecast, but I did see somebody on Twitter that said currently in Massachusetts, this game is being played at MetLife Stadium, by the way, in New York. So the guy in Massachusetts said it was 65 degrees today, and it's only expected to drop 15 degrees by the weekend. So if it's 50 degrees, I don't think we have to worry about snow. But you never know, I guess, up there, up north. I think what you telling me about the injuries to the secondary and Navy, that may play a part. But I'm gonna go with Army because they are pretty much in the driver's seat in the last 5 games. You know, like I said, they won 4 out of the last 5. So I'm gonna go with Army, but I'm gonna give Navy a little bit more credit. I'm gonna say they're gonna win. Army's gonna win 34-24. 34-24. So we'll see how that works. I do try to catch. I normally get to see at least a half, but I just like honestly when I tune in. What first got me interested into the game is just to see all the cadets and they their uniforms and stuff. Just to be unified like that, it does a little something. So I'm definitely gonna be tuned in this Saturday because I want to see what plays out. So anything else before we get off of here you want to add to it?
Just the biggest thing that I would say when you watch it is remember that this is the students that come there. That's the entire academy. Every single one of the students are shipped to the game, and then you have the midshipmen in their white caps and their blazers, and then the cadets are in their gray uniforms, and it's such a cool sight to see them all in the stand. It's an incredible one. I really want to make it to a game. I know it's not going to be easy. It's a ticket everybody wants to go to. But I say, if you get a chance to sit down and watch this game, this is football. I hate saying it, this is old school football. This is not for your past happy guys that want to see 70 points. This is not a game. You're not going to enjoy this game if that's what you like. But if you enjoy the old school fashion, buckle your chin strap, put your hand on the ground and get after the opponent on the other side of the field, you are going to love this game because this is old school, run the ball football. Not going to be a ton of passes, but when they are passes, you could see some big plays. It's always one of my favorite ones. It's my favorite game of the year. I may be a diehard Hawkeye in true life, but I love the Army Navy game. I will never miss it because it's just such a cool environment to be there, and I thoroughly enjoy watching it every
Well,
year.
I got plenty of family members, as you said you do, that served in the Army or the Navy. We want to take time to say thank you to the cadets for deciding to go to these service academies, as well as our military armed forces, armed services members. We appreciate what you do and the freedom that you provide us. So, with that said, for Donnie at Sideline Sports Network account for the Army West Point, which is at all caps SSN_Army. This is Coach I. We're at the Fan Addict. Army Navy this Saturday. Tune in if you haven't. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. And we're out of here.